Hello everyone, welcome once again to my Let's Replay channel. This is Andrew T coming at you. And once again we are going to be reviewing two games, an older one and a newer one. The older one is Willy Beamish, or The Adventures of Willy Beamish. And the newest one is Torment, Tides of Numenera. Now this is the first one I've done, which is a brand new game that came out less than a week ago. So, but first we're going to start off with Willy Beamish. This is an old Sierra-like game where it's an adventure game slash pixel hunt game, you know, point and click, whatever you want to call the genre. But it has some Sierra logic in it, in which case there's answers to problems that you didn't know were available. But this was one of the first games I saw that was a point and click game that had multiple answers to different solutions to your problems. And it also had a time limit element to it as well. So you're the protagonist, Willy Beamish. You're just a middle school kid going out there. All he wants to do is play an Atari, and you know his family's pretty well to do. He's kind of spoiled. You know, basically quintessential '90s kid, if you can think about it. And this is definitely an early to mid '90s game. I reference that a lot in my Let's Replay before, but it is. When you thought of anything to do with any cartoons or pop culture, this game was pretty much it. So it started off, in your classroom. You're trying to get out of detention and get home before your parents see your report card. This game has a couple of different things that were very well done for its time. It still had the the painted backgrounds and your little character going through them. So there's not a whole lot of what shall I say, AAA quality graphics here. But for the time, they were good. It was originally a DOS game. They updated it to CD a little bit later. In my opinion, I like the DOS games a lot better without the voice acting. There's very, very, very few instances where you have good voice actors back in the early to mid 90s, unless they came from actual cartoon actors that they got to do these. But either way, the voice acting is not horrible. As a gameplay, it is fairly entertaining just from the storyline and the dialogue elements alone and what you can do. If you want to be a complete jackass as a kid, you can, or it can be, a slightly better kid. You have a thermometer gauge, basically. It's like, hey, this is how much trouble you're in right now, and this is how much trouble you can be until the game's over. So you have, like, just say, maybe 8 to 10 chances if you screw up too much before you basically, I think get shipped off to military school. Something bad happens. The game is basically over. So you have options to do things like wreck your dad's trains. You can just take your sister's diary, stuff like that. Stuff like any normal Dennis the Menace type kid would do when he's 8 to 10 years old. So the humor, though, is very adult. When you look at some of the things that are in the game, your frog's name is Horny. Now, it's not a horned toad, it's a frog. So I don't know if you can count that up to just him not understanding that it's not a horny toad, or just because he's trying to make an adult joke. But you go later on in the game and there's a ton of stuff that's really tongue-in-cheek in the game as well. So if you're looking just for something to play through and just get some entertainment out of it, it's only about $6 on GOG.com, and I would definitely recommend it to the nostalgia for the early 90s games. It's not a Sierra game. It's like Sierra's a parent company, I believe it says on one of the screens, but it's definitely their style when it comes to the point-and-click genre. Anyway, that's about all I have to say on Willy Beamish. If I had to give it a score, I'd say I give it about a 7 out of 10 just for the gameplay, the story, the humor. It'll keep you going. Plus, there's replayability, and that you can make different decisions even from the very beginning of the game up till the end of the game. So you don't have to do everything, by the walkthroughs and just, get through it. You can make different decisions and see what's going to happen. So it's a fairly decent score and a very good price point as well for a nostalgic game. Now, moving on to the big one, Torment, Tides of Numenera. This is from the same people that did Pillars of Eternity. Got a very, very successful Kickstarter, and it's a 3D isometric game. I love those type of games, all the way back to Baldur's Gate and Fallout. love them. Mostly because they had to rely on the actual dialogue and the actual writing of the story to kind of get you through those games, and they were so good that your imagination kind of just took you into the whole world. So you didn't have to have all these AAA features of, oh no, you must see every pixel, and this one flower, it took one animator like 8 months to... No, who cares? You know, make a good story, good dialogue, and good interactions with the world, and that is a game. So this is definitely in that vein. Pillars of Eternity, the one before this, it did have a lot of great story elements and dialogue in it, but the action was kind of lacking in that. Once you cleared out everything on a screen, that was pretty much it. And if you didn't level up using those things, then you can literally clear out a whole space without doing what you need to do. So the combat is a little bit different. You have 3 little pools of like might, intellect, and speed that you can use for different interactions, like a skill check if you're D&D. So instead of dice rolling, like, hey, you have a certain skill, you can use these to within like a certain amount. It doesn't give you the option to use all of it. It gives you like 2 or 3 spots to use a point for each. So let's say you have 6 in each pool. You can say, hey, you need to move this thing. You want to use some might points for it. You only have 50% chance to doing it if you don't. If you use one, you get 75. The other one, you get 100%. Or if you want to go something like to 80 to 90, you know, without using all the space they give you, you can save a point and take your chances. And since it has a good autosave feature and quick save, then I would definitely recommend doing that and just go to town. This game the storyline is very unique in that most of these games and RPGs is like, hey, you have to build your character, but how do we get around that and do something different for once? The way they do it is that, hey, you are a cast-off body of what they call the ever-changing god, and that he basically switches bodies every time he's about to die. And he's being chased by something called the Sorrow. Don't know what it is. I've only played through the first hour of the game, maybe an hour or 2, and that's the basic story. You're a cast-off, so whenever you cast off a body, some consciousness goes in it, and it's his own person. So that's you. So that's how you'd be like, hey, he has so many past lives, you get to pick and choose what you think your new life is going to be going forward. So it's really unique in the way they do the character creation, in that it's like, hey, I want to be a tank. I want to be a jack of all trades. I want to be a straight magic user. Hey, I want to talk my way out of situations. I want to be the clever guy. I want to sneak around. You can do whatever you want to on this character creation. You don't have to be a straight one thing. You can be, hey, I want to be a defensive guy, but also be able to sneak around. All right, I want to be a magic user, but I also want to sneak around and just bash stuff when I can. Okay, it's very unique in that you can choose all these things and adjust your pools of might or intellect or speed, whatever, in order to help you with these things, if that's how you want to play the game. So just from the character creation alone, it doesn't have to have 1,800 sliders of, you know, your guy, because your guy or woman is all going to look the same, because that's how the ever-changing god looked. He made all these bodies looking the same throughout the millennia. So it's very, very smart and very, very unique the way they did this, in that you can have what you want, but you don't have to have sliders for every single stat. There's a decent amount in there that you can get what you want without having to nitpick, but for this, I think it's very well done the way they did this. And your first two companions you have, they automatically hate each other, so you have to pick one or the other, but it gives you the option not to use any of them. So that is one of the best things I've found, is that, hey, you want to play solo? Play solo. If you're smart enough to get around things without having to fight, go for it. If you don't have if you have an ideology disagreement with one of your characters and just don't want to have them around anymore, you can just kick them out. You don't have to feel forced to have a certain amount of characters just to get through the game, is the feeling I get from the first couple hours here. So these are my first impression and review of just for the first couple hours, and I'd have to say it looks very, very good. There's a lot of reading, but it never feels tacked on. It never feels like, hey, what about that arch over there? What does that arch do? Who cares? You know, you can only ask about, you can ask about everything you want from the list, but you don't have to in order to get to where you're going. So I like to be a completionist. I like to read everything, do every option I can. And one of the good things about this game is that if you examine something and you don't get anything the first time, do it again. You may get something the second time you do it, even though it usually gives you the throwaway option of, oh, we'll just keep it on here if do you want to examine this. Or instead of taking it away or making it seem like, oh, in case you just want to do it again to see the same thing you saw before. It's like, no, you may actually find something the second time through, which is brilliant. So I'm really excited for this game. I can't wait to get back into it. I'm going to do a long play. It's going to be separate from my Let's Replay channel that you're seeing now, just in the fact that this is more for do a couple of videos, get you a sense of the game, whether you want to buy it or not, what the looks like, how the gameplay goes, things like that. But this is the first one I'm going to do a long play of on a separate playlist, just because I enjoyed it that much and I really like the world that they built and the genre of it. So if I had to give it a score right now, just on what I like, if I had to give it a just unbiased score, it'd probably be 8 or 9 out of 10. But because I love the genre, and this is just my bias speaking, I give it a 10 out of 10 right now, just because it's going to be a total time vampire for me. I'm going to go into this game immediately and not come out until my eyes are glazed over and like, I can't play anymore, I have to sleep. So once again, this is Andrew T coming at you. Thank y'all so much for watching, and y'all have a good one.